Tunnel vision. You're in the middle of something dangerous, a car accident, a fight, your heart spiking, and your body knowing it's real. Your focus locks onto one thing, the oncoming car, the fist coming at your face, and the rest of the world falls away without you deciding it should. That's tunnel vision, a documented physical response. Under stress, your eyes change, the lens flattens, blood flow around the eye muscles shifts, and your field of view narrows until it's centered almost entirely on the threat. In a study of officers who had fired their weapon in real incidents, 79% reported this narrowing, and 84% said sound dropped out at the same time. The threat gets sharp, everything around it disappears. And then there's the flip side almost nobody hears about. That same narrowing sharpens what's left in the center to an unnatural clarity. Officers described the weapon itself in more detail than they could recall from a calm afternoon. It's the same mechanism aimed differently, your brain trading the whole picture for one useless, perfect piece of it. Weapon focus effect. A cashier gets robbed at gunpoint, and the second the gun appears, his attention rearranges itself around that single object as the barrel and the hand holding it take over everything he's capable of noticing. He couldn't describe the robber's face afterward, not because he wasn't looking, but because his brain decided the gun mattered more than a face ever could. It's been tested in a study where witnesses watched the same scene play out with either a gun or a checkbook, and facial recognition accuracy dropped to 66% when a gun was present, against 82% when the object was harmless. Your brain isn't choosing to ignore the face so much as it's running out of attention once the weapon claims most of it, like a spotlight that only has power for one thing at a time. Cashiers experience this, and so does anyone who ends up facing a weapon. There's a twist, though. This is where it gets stranger, since later research found the effect weakens when a weapon shows up somewhere expected, like a shooting range, which suggests it's the shock stealing attention rather than the object itself. The gun stayed. The face never did. Tachypsychia. ICE takes a car sideways before the driver even registers what's happening, and the next 2 seconds start to crawl. The guardrail floats toward him like it's underwater, and the dashboard seems to drift closer instead of rushing at him. Cracks bloom across the glass one at a time, slow enough to count. It is tachypsychia, the mind-bending time the instant danger becomes real. The obvious explanation is that his brain simply remembers the crash in more detail than usual, stretching 2 seconds into what feels like 10 once he replays it later. But some of the deeper work on this points somewhere stranger, toward real-time processing actually speeding up the moment the body starts preparing to act, meaning the slowdown might not be a trick of memory at all, but a genuine burst of extra information moving through his head while the crash is still happening. Either way, the windshield keeps cracking at the same physical speed it always would. His mind is just the one running faster or slower, depending on which version turns out true. Tonic immobility. A woman walking to her car gets grabbed from behind in a parking garage, and her whole body seizes up instead of fighting back, with her arms locking rigid and her jaw clamping shut around a scream that never makes it past her throat. She stays fully aware through the entire thing while she waits for her body to finally respond to her, and it never does, no matter how hard she tries to force it to move, even an inch closer to escape. Doctors call this tonic immobility, and it works on you the exact same way it worked on her. Your brain doesn't wait for fighting or running to fail before switching this on inside you. The freeze can fire before you've even finished deciding anything is dangerous, putting your body ahead of your mind instead of behind it, the same way a mouse goes still under a cat's paw without ever choosing to. She spent that entire encounter locked inside a body that had already decided everything on its own without asking her permission and without waiting for her input at all. Task-specific dystonia. You've played the same 4 bars on piano 10,000 times without a single issue. Then one day your ring finger just stops listening. It curls in on itself the moment you reach for that exact passage. You try to force it straight. It won't listen. The rest of your hand works completely fine. You can type, button a shirt, hold a cup. It only breaks down the second you attempt that one specific motion. This is called task-specific dystonia, and it shows up in musicians roughly 60 times more often than in people doing any other kind of work. Your brain has rewired the map it uses for that one repeated motion. The signal meant for a single finger starts spilling into the one next to it, blurring a boundary that used to be clean. Some patients show the same curling in their other hand the moment they mimic the motion, even though that hand was never affected. It suggests the problem was never really in the hand at all. It's in the specific instructions your brain sends out for that one task and nowhere else. Your coordination isn't failing failing. Your brain just learned the wrong lesson, one repetition at a time, and now it won't unlearn it. G-LOC. You're pulling a hard turn, and the G-forces stack on your body fast. Your vision goes gray at the edges first, and then it narrows like someone closing a curtain from both sides. You're still conscious and still flying, but the world has shrunk down to a tunnel. Push a little further, and the curtain finishes closing into total blackout. This is G-induced loss of consciousness, and it comes down to plumbing. Under sustained G-blood gets pulled away from your head and pools down in your lower body faster than your heart can fight against gravity to push it back up. Past a certain threshold, your brain simply stops getting enough oxygen to stay online. It shuts down for a stretch that might last 5 seconds or might last 15. What happens next is stranger than the blackout itself. Your limbs can start moving on their own with nobody home to direct them anymore. Pilots call it the funky chicken, and you don't come back all at once either. There's a window where you're technically conscious, but not fully yourself again. Flying a plane you don't quite remember climbing into in the first place. Adrenaline dump and crash. Something goes wrong fast, and your body floods with adrenaline before your brain finishes processing what happened. Your heart slams against your ribs, your hands start shaking, and your breathing turns short and quick, and the moment narrows down to whatever's in front of you. You feel sharp, almost superhuman. Then it's over. This is the adrenaline dump, followed by a crash nobody warns you about. Somewhere between 20 and 60 minutes later, you drop hard into exhaustion and fog and an irritability out of proportion to whatever's left of the situation. Adrenaline burns off fast once the threat clears, but cortisol was released right alongside it and takes its time leaving your bloodstream. While adrenaline gave you the spike, cortisol was quietly suppressing digestion and pulling glucose into your blood for fuel. Your muscles were already tearing through. So when the adrenaline drops out, cortisol is still circulating through a body that just burned its own reserves. You're not weak. You're paying the metabolic bill for a surge your body prepared for a fight that may have lasted only seconds. 1,000-yard stare. You've been in it too long. The noise or the fear or the grinding exhaustion of a situation your mind can't process in real time. And at some point, your face just goes blank. Your eyes stay open, but stop landing on anything in the room. You're not asleep and not confused in any way anyone can point to. You're just gone, present in body, while something in you has quietly stepped out the back door. This is the 1,000-yard stare, your brain's version of pulling the plug on a system that's overheating. When stress climbs past what your mind can metabolize in the moment, it triggers dissociation, a shutdown that separates you from your own thoughts and surroundings, so the full weight of what's happening can't reach you all at once. The name comes from war correspondents who watched soldiers coming out of brutal combat wearing that exact look, eyes fixed on something far past whatever was in front of them. It wasn't weakness. It was a mind buying itself distance from more than it could hold. Psychomotor agitation under acute stress. A bad meeting drags on past what feels reasonable, and somewhere in the middle of it, your body starts moving on its own before you've told it to do anything. Your foot taps against the floor while your leg bounces under the table without your permission. You stand up to pace, even though there's nowhere to go and nothing waiting at the other end of the room, while your hands find something to twist or tap or pull at without you ever deciding to. This is psychomotor agitation. It shows up when your stress response has nowhere to spend itself. Your body was built to handle threat through fighting or fleeing, but most modern stress offers neither option, so the energy your system mobilized has to go somewhere. It leaks out through your muscles instead, through pacing that goes nowhere, and hands that refuse to sit still no matter how hard you try. It isn't nervousness for its own sake. It's a fight or flight response with the fight and flight both canceled, looking for any exit it can find through your body.